Let's make Scallion Malawach with Everything Labneh and Lox. This is my So Malawach is a Yemenite pancake. I wanted to put my own twist on it by basically putting all my favorite things about a New York City bagel, scallion cream cheese, the everything seasoning, the tomato, the lox, and kind of combine it with a traditional Middle Eastern breakfast, which is where you might have Malawach along with the fresh tomato dip, jammy eggs, and Zhug, which is a Yemenite hot sauce. So the result is you've got these super flaky, let's rip this apart. So flaky, so many layers. And so you can kind of rip and dip, and it's just so good with that labneh. Our 16 ounces of yogurt turned into 8 ounces of creamy labneh. So here we have our labneh. It's been sitting for a day now. And all you have to do to make the labneh is take your yogurt and put it inside either a cheesecloth, or I just like to use a clean kitchen towel. You can see all of the liquid that was strained out of the yogurt. And now it's basically cream cheese, but it has a way tangier flavor since it started out as yogurt. Now you can see that this one is still quite creamy. This is actually the consistency that I like it to be, almost like a whipped cream cheese. If you wanted this to be even firmer, you can let it strain even longer in the fridge. I'm gonna transfer it into an airtight container since I'm not gonna be using it until tomorrow. And this is why it's really important to use a clean kitchen towel or cheesecloth for it. That way you're not getting any fibers in your labneh. You can go ahead and use this immediately or store it in the fridge in an airtight container. And don't throw out this whey. So this is the whey that strained out of our yogurt. If you smell it, it has a bit of that sour flavor. You can use this in doughs, so if you want to add almost like a sourdough flavor to any breads. You can also use it to make ricotta cheese. You can mix it into smoothies and protein shakes since it has some protein. Really, don't throw it out. It's very nutritious and can also add flavor to a lot of different things. Now, one note about the labneh, excuse the sound in the background, Crosby is eating his breakfast. Because we're gonna cover it with everything seasoning, which has salt on it, I don't put a lot of salt in the actual labneh. If you are making the labneh and you're not planning to put everything seasoning on it, you can go ahead and add more salt. I would recommend doubling the salt to start. It'll just taste a little better if you add a little salt to start. But if you are adding the everything seasoning again, I limit the salt just because there usually is a lot of salt in everything seasoning. So I like to just use my KitchenAid to make the dough. So I'm gonna measure out the flour with my kitchen scale. I just find it so much easier than having to measure out with a cup. Mix in our salt. Since I'm here, I usually just mix it by hand. Add in our water. And now we'll use the dough hook. Add a little bit of water. Save the ends in a glass of water to regrow on your windowsill. So here we have our dough. Our beautiful dough. It's nice. I actually put a little bit too much water, but it's still nice and pliable and stretchy and smooth. If you want it to be exact, you can measure it out. Equal size balls. What we're gonna do is the ones that you're not working with, keep them in your bowl and keep it covered. That way they don't dry out. Divide our butter up into 8 pieces. Take one piece and you wanna rub it all over. Use your hands and smear it all over your cutting board. Okay, one thing you also wanna do is put a wet kitchen towel under your cutting board so it doesn't slide around like mine is. There we go. We have our butter all over. Now we're gonna take our ball and roll it out as thin as you possibly can. You wanna be able to see the cutting board underneath. And what this is gonna do is it's gonna help you get it really flaky. The thinner it is, the more layers you'll be able to roll in your malawach. Take a second pat of butter, and now you want to smear this all over the inside. This is what's going to give you flaky layers, since the fat will separate the layers of flour. Make sure you get all the way to the edges. Now you want to add 1/4 of the scallions. Sprinkle them all over. Take a bench scraper or anything else you can use to dig underneath, and you want to roll it onto itself, away from you. Keep rolling, roll it. It almost looks like a cinnamon roll or something. Either direction. And there you have it. It almost looks like a cinnamon roll or something. But you can now imagine that when this flattens, you'll have all those layers. As you finish each roll, you want to layer them with parchment paper in between. So each one is stacked directly on top of each other. And then when you have your final one, take your last piece of parchment paper, put it on top. Use your hand to start to smush it. Smush down. And then go ahead and take your cutting board that you were just using and press. Even pressure straight down. You now have your flattened pancakes. If you were to try to peel off the parchment paper right now, you'll notice it's a bit sticky. What you want to do is you want to actually freeze these before you cook it, and what that'll do is it'll solidify everything, the butter, the flour. You can peel this off and cook it really easily. So just stick it into a freezer bag and freeze it for at least an hour. But I'd also recommend just making these ahead of time. You can stick them in your freezer and then have them any day whenever you wake up and want to make them for breakfast. I love these silicone reusable bags. They're freezer friendly, and it just eliminates the need to use a Ziploc bag. And this one, so here you can squeeze out the air, this little piece to seal it shut. And there you have it. Your nice freezer-friendly malawach. Malawach has been in the freezer, and it's time to assemble all of our toppings. So first what we're going to do is get some water boiling, and we're going to use this to make our jammy eggs. While the water's boiling, we're going to use this time to make the zhug, which is a Yemenite hot sauce. It's a green sauce that you've probably seen as the hot sauce option whenever you've gotten falafel. It's a super herbaceous, delicious hot sauce, and we're going to make it in a mortar and pestle. Easily make it by just blending all the ingredients together in a blender, but doing it in a mortar and pestle is a traditional way, and it really releases all the aromatics and flavors from the garlic, from the spices, and again, for all the measurements and ingredients, you can pick up a copy of my cookbook. And whenever you make a sauce with chilies, set the seeds aside, that way you can decide at the end how much seeds you want to put in. I actually already threw in most of the seeds, but I still want it a little spicier, so I'm just going to go ahead and add the rest of those in. Nice, thick paste of a hot sauce. So let's plate our labneh dollop, and we're going to just smoosh across the plate. Take each piece and roll it up. It's a little janky, but it's a rose. Now for the Everything Labneh, we're gonna season it with our everything seasoning. A dash of sumac. Sumac is this Middle Eastern spice, and it has a sour flavor. It almost tastes like lemon juice, which actually goes really nicely. It almost acts like the fresh lemon you might put on smoked salmon. And it also adds this gorgeous red color. So that's one done. Make a dollop, a little wave of labneh. So now it's time to cook our malawach. Add a little bit of olive oil to your pan. Take your malawach, straight from frozen, put it straight into the pan. Peel it off. Use something to press it down. Try to get every surface onto your pan. Ideally, you want to freeze them flat. Mine didn't freeze quite as flat as they should have, hence we've got a little bit of a situation, but as it thaws, it'll flatten out. And if anything isn't flat, you can just use your tongs to push it as it cooks. And here's something that the ladies in Taipei do. They like fluff up pancake, and you can see those layers. Look at how flaky, I mean, you can see those layers, you can hear those layers. So now that we have our malawach, we're gonna put the malawach down by the labneh. We'll add our smoked salmon. Excuse my absolutely heinous looking eggs. I got these like special pink eggs that were literally impossible to peel. There you have it, our beautiful Scallion Malawach. Have it with Labneh, which is a yogurt cheese. And so you can kind of rip and dip, and it's got everything seasoning on it. And have it with a little bit of lox, as well as some fresh tomato dip. Just a bit of Zhug for Middle East meets New York bagel breakfast. So let's have a bite. The malawach is so crispy and flaky, and it's just so good with that labneh. Tangy, creamy. You can rip and dip, or you can take the whole thing and kind of roll it up like a, oh, I mean, listen to that crunch. Let's just admire these. Crispy layers. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just scoop all this stuff up, smush it around, scoop up my labneh, add my egg in, add some lox, and make like a little wrap. Almost like a kati roll. Scallion pancake. If you love having lox and cream cheese for breakfast, this is such a unique and delicious twist. I list the Zhug as optional in the cookbook, but I highly recommend it. It is so good. Wow. What sets malawach apart from a scallion pancake is that traditional Chinese scallion pancakes use oil to separate those layers in the dough, and malawach uses butter, which makes it just so freaking delicious. You have that buttery, almost paratha-like wrap with your lox, cream cheese in the form of the labneh. You have the everything seasoning. So good. You can get the recipe for my malawach in my cookbook, Indulgent Eats at Home. So make sure to get a copy of my cookbook, Indulgent Eats at Home, to get the recipe for my Scallion Malawach with everything Labneh and lox. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit like and subscribe for more. See ya!